Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna introduced a bill yesterday to add President Trump to Mount Rushmore. Well, you must not know Trump very well if you expect him to share a mountain with four other guys. Maybe we put a mountain on top of a little, like a big mountain on top of the little mountain. Like a one guy, we put a one guy mountain.
Yes, what late night comedy is trying to make a comeback? Is that what's happening? After 4 years in an iron lung, 4 years in a coma, trying to be funny again? Is that what's happening? Fear not, though, they ordinarily don't succeed in their efforts to be funny. They murdered comedy long ago. They know likey the comedy. Tell you that much. Well, once again, Good Friday to you and welcome back. It's quite a planet we've got here, isn't it? We remain at 888-630-9625. And for liberals, that is, of course, 888-630. Write faster. And have to sort out the rest on your own. Got to do it real slow. Got to go slow, super slow, because, their brains, you know what's going on with the brains. They're no good. She's a broke, that brain of his. And boy, I got to tell, they're all seeking therapy. You see, I've been talking about every day there's a new story about Democrat members of Congress bringing in psychologists for the Democrat Party retreat under Jamie Raskin, the Lost Marks brother. And then where do we have the Salon magazine story that everybody he knows, it's, like the old Pauline Kael thing. I can't believe Nixon won. Nobody I know voted for him. And these people, they've been telling us for years that the country is in the midst of a mental health crisis. What they failed to mention was it's them. But now I think that's plain for all to see. Anybody that's paying attention can see that there is an epidemic, a pandemic even. Is that better than an epidemic, a pandemic, of mental illness? And its name is the Democrat Party. It's not just Trump derangement syndrome anymore. It's much deeper than that. And it sometimes involves the spread of monkeypox. But that said, they are the Democrat Party, our Democrat brethren, our brothers and sisters, and some of them neither brothers nor sisters, but something else altogether. And there are stories flying around the internet that the Black Hawk helicopter pilot is a transgender person who says, I'm a lady, but actually has gonads and stuff like that. And it looks like that story is probably not true, but it is making its way around the internet. There are still a lot of questions that must be answered, and I'm thinking that we will actually get the answers to these questions. Truth is, in circumstances like this, we normally do get the answers to the questions, but there are a lot of questions that are still being asked, some that have not yet been asked, and it may take some time. I think they're now saying a month or so before an initial report with initial findings, and that's a month because that's how Washington works. That slows everything down, and they give us the slow roll, and then the next crisis hits in a couple of days, and everybody forgets about it, just like the news media drops stories like Democrats self-immolating all over the country, or Democrat suicide attacks on Republicans, and they just let this stuff wash away, like their halitosis, which doesn't wash away so easily, does it, with those? No, it doesn't. So we're still learning, and we will still be learning for quite some time, I suspect. But I also think that in the end, the airliner and the airline pilot not going to be the villains of the story. The airline pilot on approach to runway 33 at Washington's Ronald Reagan National Airport, the airline pilot is not going to be the bad guy here. And that means, well, there are other places to look, but the primary go-to is going to be the Black Hawk helicopter crew, the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter crew, and then policies and the ideas that we have. Hey, let's create a lane for U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopters shooting down the Potomac River right along the runways from Reagan Airport at night. That seems like a good idea. That doesn't seem like a good idea. Nobody, I tell you what, my friend Randy and I were out last night. We went out for a couple of cool beverages. Beers, you might call them beers. And no, we didn't get any food. We just got beers. But we went to a place in the neighborhood and sat at the end of the bar. And a bartender who neither one of us knew, I think we'd met him once before, but don't know his name. We're not really in conversation with him. And he came over to us, and he didn't even hear us talking about anything. He just started spouting off about the crash, and immediately started saying, "What kind of idiots are we that we have helicopters shooting along the Potomac River on the edge of the airport? Isn't that obviously dumb?" And I've got to say that our bartender was onto something there. I don't think we're going to see that anymore. I think that we'll change that. The helicopters flying through that area by the airport have a ceiling. We had a wonderful caller yesterday, United States Army Major, retired Black Hawk pilot who has flown out of Fort Belvoir, and talking about how the ceiling there for your helicopter is 200 feet off the deck, right? 200 feet off the water, off the above ground level. I like to call it AGL. AGL, it's above ground level. But 200 feet, and that's where you got planes landing, airliners, and they come into the 200 feet, 100 feet, and then 0 feet when their tires squeal on the runway. And that's going to be an issue. Now, what's the Pentagon policy, the Army policy, the FAA policy, the airport policy? Also, we're learning all kinds of things. Like they're apparently in the control tower at the time. There was one controller doing the work that should be done by two controllers at the same time. And that looks like it's something that should be frowned upon. Also, of course, the Biden administration was very focused on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there was a big push on the part of the Biden administration to stack the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, to recruit a lot of people with, for example, severe intellectual disabilities, which I think is any Democrat voter, isn't it? Severe. Couldn't you describe any Democrat in any bus stop as someone with severe intellectual disabilities? Why would you vote for Kamala Harris if you didn't have severe intellectual disabilities? Well, why would you vote for Joe Biden, who himself enjoys severe intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities? But the language in the Joe Biden FAA DEI, and they put out documents on this at the time. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities with the federal government that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. So these are the people we especially at the FAA, they put this out, the people that we want to put special emphasis on recruiting and hiring. Who are they? Listen to this. They include, now with disabilities, they include hearing, vision. So you can be deaf and blind. That's good. That they're looking for you to work at the FAA. Was there a deaf, blind air traffic controller in the tower night before last? Missing extremities, because nothing says FAA like, the one-armed man. Partial paralysis, complete paralysis. So wait a minute. Now we've got deaf, dumb, people with missing limbs that are paralyzed. But it goes on. Epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, that's just to say registered Democrat. Psychiatric disability, as to say you're crazy, you've been institutionalized, more Democrats. And my favorite, dwarfism. Dwarfism. So we're going to have to check, and President Trump raises an eyebrow about this, and the entirety of the news media goes bat guano crazy, spilling all over themselves. They're quite amazing. Maybe they should be asking whether there were any epileptic, paralyzed, one-legged air traffic controllers suffering from dwarfism and psychiatric disabilities that were involved in this. But apparently supervisor pulled one of the ATC, we got more acronyms coming up, more abbreviations, air traffic controller out of the tower, said, "Oh, good time for you to take your break. But there's supposed to be two of us here for this." Say, yeah, go away, and now, see, President Trump's been in the White House for like 110 hours or something, so the media is blaming him for the structure of government everywhere it fails, because that's what they do. They're not well. They're really not. They include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism. Dwarfism. I thought you weren't allowed to say dwarves and dwarfism, but they're the government. They're Democrats. They know better than I. What do I know? Remarkable times we're in. So a lot of, and also it's just the tragedy is completely off the charts. It's berserk. Figure skaters coming home from a competition in Wichita, Kansas, and they were hosting 2 Russian skaters as well. There was at least one Russian coach, skating coach, aboard the airplane, and young women and young men involved in the U.S. figure skating program. And it's the whole thing is awful. And 3 U.S. Army personnel aboard the Black Hawk helicopter. And I think we're still learning about the people that died. 67 people, 67 people in this tragic accident. Now, the New York Times with the headline "Trump, without citing evidence, They love this without evidence thing. And isn't it your job aren't you a newspaper? Aren't you supposed to? Hey, the president just said this without evidence, so he's got to provide you with all the documentation, all the evidence. Is that what that is? Now, also, you see that they keep arresting illegal aliens that are murderers and rapists and things. And where was it? In Chicago. It was in Chicago where our head of border security went into Chicago, started arresting illegal alien gang members and stuff, and got an illegal alien man who has a long history of child sex abuse, and caught him again, grabbed him again, and the Democrats say, well, come on, he's not. They say he's undocumented, right? They say he's not an illegal alien. He's undocumented. It's like, well, he's been arrested and charged 3 or 4 times with child sex abuse. Aren't there documents associated with that? I think he's documented. He's a documented child sex abuser. And the Democrats will scream in your face and lay down in front of trains to try to protect the illegal alien, convicted child molesters, because, they're the party of Jeffrey Epstein, who didn't kill himself, among other things. And Bill Clinton and Bill Clinton's internship program. Hey, what'd you learn in Washington? Well, it would be inappropriate for me to tell you here, I think, but perhaps I can show you later. The Democrat Party has a lot of issues, and we, normal people, remember normal. We have to take issue with a lot of their lunacy because we're normal. We're normal. Absolutely, entirely normal. I think that's got to be a new T-shirt for us. Something like absolutely 100% completely normal. That'd be a good T-shirt, don't you think? The Chris Plant Show logo on there, because why not? Yeah, but New York Times, Trump, without citing evidence, blames plane crash on DEI and Democrats. Well, that's because he didn't want to blame one-legged dwarves suffering from intellectual paralysis because, that might seem impolite to some. Isn't that amazing? And the New York Times is like, well, we're not going to look into it. And honestly, the Obama administration did the DEI thing everywhere because they're racists, just to name one of their many fine characteristics that the Democrats enjoy so much. And Joe Biden made it even worse because now it's racist and intellectual and mental disabilities and dwarfism and missing limbs, and because those are their priorities. Just don't raise any questions about it because the New York Times will attack you. Yes, sir. And the Daily Beast, Trump fuels crazy D.C. plane crash theories with insult to Army Black Hawk pilots. Of course, he didn't insult Army Black Hawk pilots, but, never let the truth get in the way of a good headline, as they say, or a good story. Amazing stuff. Wah, wah, wah. Yes, sir. Staffing at Reagan Washington National Airport air control tower was not normal on night of collision. I say remember normal. This could be part of returning to normal, too. Staffing not normal in air traffic control tower during D.C. plane crash. The Fox News Channel, Newsmax TV, reporting as well. Hey, wait a minute. What was going on in the tower at the time? Well, I don't know. The Democrats have been in charge of staffing and hiring, and we're going to have to look at that. The union says the tower should have had 30 people, but apparently it normally has about 19 people. And that's under Joe Biden. That was a study they found in 2023. We are at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. All right, and we should go to the telephones now. What do you say about that, Michael? And Jasmine is back today. She had jury duty. She's doing her patriotic duty, jury duty. She came back and I just said, guilty, guilty. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to, let's go to Kurt, calling from Chantilly, Virginia. Oh, Kurt, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris, how you doing? Good
I'm
to
great.
talk to you again.
Welcome.
So, I was a former RJ pilot, flew that plane for 14 years, 13-year captain, lots of time going in and out of National. 3-3 was always my preferred runway. And a couple of things, listening to the audio recordings, I got just two things really come to mind. When traffic advisory is given, it's usually given to both aircraft. They gave the traffic advisory to the Blackhawk, but they never let the RJ ask the RJ if they had the Blackhawk inside. So that's number one that comes to mind. Number two, having flown in there quite a bit, when I hear that there's an aircraft, a helo specifically over on that coastline, hey, look out for the RJ. Well, I know that's probably me, so I'm asking the tower, where is this aircraft right away? So, simple threat assessment right there to keep my my passengers and crew safe. Right,
and I love the fact you're a regional jet, the same type of airplane, the same airport, the same runway, 3-3. You like 3-3 better than the main runway there, and you're aware of the fact that there are helicopters peeling back and forth along the Potomac River. So you're saying it was a lapse of communication between whom? What, the tower?
The tower, everybody involved. The tower, Blackhawk, and more specifically the RJ.
Yeah, I suspect that you're 100% right, that there was a serious lack of communication, a lack of paying attention with tragic results. Our media, the most corrupt institution in America. I think they might be worse than Jeffrey Epstein. What do you think? The news media better or worse than Jeffrey Epstein? Discuss. They should debate that at the George Washington University. The other day, they debated whether the guy that killed the healthcare CEO was a hero or a zero. Because they, some of them think, well, he should probably be given the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He could be the great hero of the story, according to the Democrats. They're not on the side of civilization. Pretty awful political party, I've got to say. So we've got that. We've got a lot of news and stories going. We've also got Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel on Capitol Hill yesterday. Confirmation hearings, and let me say that Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat, not so long ago, was a Democrat. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Hearing yesterday also. Until 20 minutes ago, a lifelong Democrat, obviously. Kennedy, Democrat, family, forever. And the Democrats on Capitol Hill are trying to destroy the Democrats that are working with the Trump administration because Really, they're the party of civil war and firing on Fort Sumter. They're the party of transgenderism. They're the party of child molestation. They're the party of illegal aliens. Boy, are they the illegal aliens. Wow. They love illegal aliens. And if the Trump administration should go in and arrest child rapists in Chicago, the Democrats will just come out and yell that, that you shouldn't call him an illegal alien. It's like, well, okay. Should we just call him a Democrat then? What should we call him? Amazing people. Can I call them people, Michael? Pretty amazing. Also, a great story the Breitbart people have. Voters trust Trump over media, including massive number of young people. What? There's big trouble for the Democrats. Oh, and they had a crazy, ridiculous gathering at Georgetown University, the Democrats did, hosted by Democrat Jonathan Capehart, who is he a cross-dresser? Does he steal women's luggage from airports like a lot of other Democrats and then go home and dress up like a lady? Jonathan Capehart of the, what is he, Washington Post, MSDNC, whatever. It's all the same Circle Fest and the same hot tub. Remarkable stuff. But the Breitbart people have a fun story. Voters trust Donald Trump more than news media. After a decade of the regime media grinding away at two-term president and winner of the popular vote, Donald Trump, voters currently trust the White House incumbent more than the news media. Now, that's good common sense. The American people maybe we're snapping back, coming back to thinking clearly. Rasmussen reports surveyed 1,245 likely voters between January 21st and 23rd, asked the very simple, straightforward question, who do you trust more? That's the question, and then you had choices. The choices were Donald Trump, the news media, or not sure. A plurality of 44% chose Trump. Only 41% chose the news media. 15% were unsure. That 15% really shouldn't be allowed to vote, should they? The internals, they like to call the poll numbers that the ones we're not going to share with you. They're we got the internals and the externals. The internals are mind-blowing and speak to a larger phenomenon because young people aged 18 to 39 years old trust Trump over the media by a stunning 13 points. 45% trust Trump, again, of 18 to 39-year-olds. So you can vote starting at 18, right? Hillary Clinton shouldn't be allowed to vote either, should she? Young people 18 to 39 trust Trump over the media by a stunning 13 points, 45% to 32%. The only age demographic Trump lost was those aged 40 to 64. The Democrat Party is they're skewing old now. They're the party of the old and the crusty and the illegal and the criminals. So the age cohort 40 to 64 years of age trust the media more than Trump by 5 points, 46 to 41%. Those age 65 plus trust Trump more than the media by 6 points, 48 to 42. So it's fun, but the young voters trusting Trump more than the news media is, honestly, that means that the news media is just toast. They're over. You can forget about them. They should fold up their tents and then set them on fire, as they so often do with so many different things, setting them on fire. Now, Michael, you have that George Washington University, Jonathan Capehart stuff, because that's pretty whack-a-doodle-doo, isn't it? It's Georgetown University. Jonathan Capehart, who is supposed to be a journalist, I think, isn't he? Jonathan Capehart, as the moderator. There's nothing moderate about him. He's a political extremist and a radical. But the so-called moderator, Jonathan Capehart, at Georgetown University with the Democrats, and there are 8 alleged adult Democrats there. and they're vying to become the chair of the DNC, the chairman, the chairwoman, the chair something in between, because it is the DNC and they have thousands of genders, or at least more than 100. Aren't they amazing? And Jonathan Capehart with the Democrats there. One of the questions they took up is, why did Kamala Harris lose the election in November to Donald Trump? Kamala Harris, as you may be aware, is allegedly a woman, and she's allegedly a woman of color, WOC, as Democrats say, because they're so racist. And here's Jonathan Capehart, who is African-American and black and LGBTQ. Which one is he in the, I think he's G and possibly B and maybe Q, maybe at home T, it's hard to say. Jonathan Capehart with the Democrats.
I'm going to, I have a show of hands. How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat?
Every hand in the room. They're laughing.
Okay.
Everybody in America.
That's good. You all pass.
You all pass. You all pass. I like gas, honestly. You pass. That's Jonathan Capehart. I think he's still a fake reporter with the fake newspaper, the Washington Post, and the fake news outlet MSDNC. And he's hosting this ridiculous Democrat Party DNC event at a university that used to be a Catholic university, but they gave up Catholicism long ago, Georgetown University. And the big question, and they all giggle like the demented little girls suffering from dwarfism. They could get jobs at the FAA, though. And they all raise their hands. How many of you think that Kamala Harris lost because of racism and misogyny, right?
How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat?
Yeah, you guys are really kind of easy to figure out, aren't you? The Democrat Party, and that's, at least it's a lot of bourgeois, but at least it's racially divisive, and that's the party of the bullwhip and the lynching tree, the Democrat Party. That's what they're all about, because they've got a lot of issues, a lot of very serious mental issues.
That's good. You all pass.
You all, because every single goose-stepping one of them has exactly the same opinion. It's not their own opinion. It's like the old Democrat Party line, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. And that definitely is a mantra of the Democrat Party today. Wah, wah, wah. Yeah, Jonathan Capehart, journalists. And they're supposed to be deciding there who will become the chair of the DNC. Do you think they're going to choose based on race, based on genitalia, melanin levels? I'm guessing they probably will, because the Democrat Party, the party of Jefferson Davis and the Confederate States of America, it's not like they've become less racist over time. The Democrat Party is still home to every vile racist virtually in the United States of America. I guess there must be somebody living on a mountaintop somewhere that didn't vote Democrat that's a racist too. And the Democrats love to call everybody racist because they think that shuts everybody up. And nobody ever reminds them who they are and what their history is. But it's good to be a Democrat, isn't it? Womp, womp, womp. So the Democrats, yeah, and that's it. They're still stuck back there. Kamala Harris lost, Donald Trump won, because everybody in America that didn't vote for Kamala Harris is a racist, which is what they said during the Barack Obama years, too. If you didn't vote for Barack Obama, the most radical left-wing, and we've had running for president, much less winning the presidency in the history of the country. But if you didn't support him, then it's the Democrats, again, the party of the KKK, say, well, that's because you're a racist. I don't think that's the case. Stop killing 40% of the black babies and the women and get back to me later. Amazing people, these people. Can you just say? Crazy man, crazy. our Democrat Party. Yes, sir. Yeah, and I can't wait to get Tulsi Gabbard. We'll have to get to Tulsi Gabbard in the next hour because she was en fuego. And again, a Democrat until a minute ago, a Democrat member of the House of Representatives out of the great state of Hawaii. And she's still an Army Reserve officer. She is a veteran of combat zones, and the Democrat Party so betrayed her. You may remember that Hillary Clinton accused her of being a Russian asset or a Russian agent while she's a U.S. Army officer. But apparently the U.S. Army was fine with her being a Russian asset. Never mind what people like Hillary Clinton say. Just remarkable stuff. All right, let's take another phone call, Michael. Let's go to Vince calling from Stafford, Virginia. On line 7. My apologies. Yeah, our call screening program is on the fritz. We got some technical difficulties here today, but we will wrestle them to the ground. Vince, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Chris, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I can.
Good. My name is Vince. I've worked at National Airport for 40 years.
Wow.
And basically I was an aircraft maintenance technician.
Uh-huh.
So I'm well familiar with dealing with ground control with the tower and communicating on radio frequencies. But I just want to add some insight. I have a tendency to talk a lot, but I'm going to try to talk as fast as I can and make it as brief as I can. First of all, National Airport is kind of unique. We all talk about the amount of flights inbound and outbound, but there's an oddity with National. It's what we call crunch time. In other words, between 7 a.m. in the morning and 9 a.m. in the morning, that's the busiest time. Airplanes are departing. Every airline wants to leave at the same time. And then you can go from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 3, and there's very, very little activity. But from 9 o'clock in the evening till 10 o'clock in the evening, that's another window what we call crunch time because you have quick turns, aircrafts that are arriving, turning quickly and departing, and you have terminators from all the different airlines arriving in that window to spend the night at National. So with that being said, anytime there's an incident, as what happened recently, a tragedy, there's always red flags. And there's always a lot of little issues that tend to create the big issue that creates an accident, unfortunately. We've been dodging a bullet for years dealing with traffic on the Potomac River, military versus commercial aviation. But in the tower, when you assign one person to talk to the military and at the same time communicate with commercial, be advised commercial aircraft operate on VHF frequency, and military operates on UHF frequency. So the point I'm making is that when ground or tower talks to a commercial aircraft, all the commercial aircraft are on a VHF or frequency. And that being said, they all hear each other. They hear each other. They know exactly what's going on. But when a military aircraft is operating on a UHF frequency, they don't hear. Commercial pilots don't have any clue of what's going on. They do not have UHF transceivers. Mm-hmm. So you have one person in a tower, supposedly, from what we're told, that's communicating on two different frequency bands at the same time, trying to control two different aircraft traveling at high rates of speed. Very little margin for error.
Right.
So that is a red flag. There's no doubt. The other thing was identifying. The tower person asked to identify, can you see the CRJ? As I said, that's crunch time. And at nighttime, you're looking at beacons. Aircraft have anti-collision lights. And you're determining, is that the CRJ? Or is this the CRJ? Or what is that? There was never any clarification given on identifying visually an aircraft, and the person in the tower accepted what the helicopter crew said. On hindsight, perhaps if he or she would have said, Pat 25, hold your position, the whole thing could have been avoided until things finally calmed down.
Yeah.
But that did not happen, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah,
So,
Vince, I was reading about what you're talking about, the military radio frequency versus the civilian radio frequency and the lack of communication. And you think that's where we're going to find the rub here. Is that correct, Vince?
I think, yes, Chris, I think that's going to be one part of it. I think when you talk red flags, that's going to be a major red flag right there on operating on two different frequencies.
Yeah, big time. And then down the number of people in the control tower down, and apparently a supervisor had sent. There were two people at this, this control panel, and one was sent on break or something. And moments later, and what usually happens, Vince, in situations like this one, is that there were multiple failures that came together to create the catastrophe, and there wasn't a single moment where you can point at that and say that caused it, because there will be 3 or 4 or 5 different elements that will be identified, and part of that may be the bureaucracy protecting itself. But I've got to say, NTSB is pretty good, and DOD is investigating too, and they want to get to the right answer, I think. And under Pete Hegseth, I think they will. And the Democrats are gone, so that ought to help. And we'll have to find out if there are any one-legged albino dwarves in the control room and the control tower at the time. Okay. A lot of people want to talk about a number of the topics that are in front of us today in the United States of America. And we should go back to the telephones. There are a lot of great Americans on the phone. Let's go. This is kind of fun. Let's go to a great American calling from Moscow, Russia, which is in Russia, which used to be the USSR. Let's go to Bob calling from Moscow. Bob, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, Mr. Chris Plant. And what I want to suggest or talk about is what happened with the airplane and helicopter crash.
Yes.
It was a totally preventable issue. If policies and procedures were followed or had been written properly, when they were short an air traffic controller, the airport should have been immediately put on flight delay status.
Now, listen to you. Now, I've got to, because you called from Moscow and everything, and I'm going to blame Michael Piercy for running up against the clock here, even though it's my fault. But can you hang in there for a minute, because I'd like to get back to you. Can you do that, Bob?
Yes, sir. I'll try.
Grazie.